Hi everyone, I'm Peter, and in this technique video we're going to learn two different techniques for the right hand. The first one being three-finger scales played by P, M, and I, and the second one speed bursts consisting of four notes played by I, A, M, I. Let's start with three-finger scales. Before we begin with playing scales, we actually have to even out our fingers. Playing scales with three fingers, including the thumb, means that the thumb, being the strongest of them all, tends to be a little bit more forceful than the other fingers, and we don't want this to translate into our playing, so we have to figure out how to make all fingers sound the same. Let's start with an exercise that looks at exactly that by playing P, M, I on the third string. Find a universal hand position that doesn't move around and avoid any accent at all. When doing this, you can try out different hand positions in order to really feel comfortable and not to wobble with your whole hand or arm. Once you feel comfortable in a playing position, let's start purposely adding accents that are not always played by the thumb. So let's play groups of four. Let's speed it up a little bit. Now that we've evened out our fingers, let's start with the first principle of playing three-finger scales with M, I, and P. Playing an ascending scale from the sixth to the first string, we always start with M and finish with P. So the fingering goes M, I, P before we go to the next string, M, I, P. Let's start with open strings. Play each string three times, starting on the sixth string. Moving from the first to the sixth string, we start with P, continue with M and I, and switch strings. Let's start on the first string. Time for our first scale. In the beginning, we're using a simplified scale, only using three fingers, 1, 2, and 3 per string. We're going through the different permutations afterwards. So let's start with 1, 2, 3 before moving to the next string with the exact same fingering. Moving from the first to six, let's try out a different fingering. Let's go with 4, 3, and 2, starting with P in the right hand. Now once go up and down again with the remaining fingering, 1, 2, 4, up and down, 1, 3, 4. When switching directions, coming from an ascending scale into a descending scale, there's actually not much we have to do in the right hand because the fingering will sort it out by itself, as you can see. Let's just play this scale we just played, 1, 2, 3, up, and then immediately down again, and we can see the fingering will automatically make it possible that we switch directions. Slowing down, M, I, P, turning around, M, I, I, switching string, P, M, I, P, M, I. I'll only play the first 3 strings and not comment on it, so you can actually observe what's happening. Coming from a descending scale and switching directions into an ascending scale, there's actually a slur that we have to add. And I'll demonstrate how that works by starting with P on the 4th string, moving down to the 6th string, P, M, I. Switching directions, I'm adding one slur, and now continuing with P. And now I can just continue in the fingering I'm used to, and my P, and so on. Once more, I'll demonstrate the same thing without commenting on it. So in theory, we can now play an eternal scale going up and down and up and down. I'll make 2 whole rounds with 1, 2, and 3. And so on. Let's move on to the next topic, speed bursts. The fingering in the right hand that we're using is I, A, M, I. And since you've probably played a tremolo before, you might get used to a large portion of this fingering. AMI is something that feels very natural in general for a guitarist. Let's begin very simple with playing I, A, M, I on the 1st string and just getting used to this fingering. The thumb can be either placed on the 6th string. I prefer the 2nd string because it's closer to the other fingers and the arch is a little bit smaller. In my opinion, that's a little bit easier. So let's play very slowly on the 1st string. And just to try it out, let's speed it up a little bit. And let's already establish grouping them into 3 different groups, because it's going to be more important once we also involve the left hand. Let's already get used to that. So the first group is IA, the second one is MI. Try that again. The next one is I and AMI. And the last one is IMA and I. Let's complicate it a little bit more by adding neighboring strings. So for now we're doing it on the 2nd string, I'm placing my thumb on the 3rd string, and then we're doing the same 3 different groupings, IA and MI. I and AMI. IAM and I. And now let's let it flow and see if we already feel a difference maybe. Time to add the left hand. At first we're only playing 1, 1, 1, 2 with the left hand. So the fingering is 1, 1, 1, 2. And we're also directing the whole speed burst at the last note. So the impulse is on the last 2nd finger that we're putting on. Let's just try it out how it feels. And now let's apply the same groups that we just did. IA, MI, I, AMI, and IAM, and I. next one is I, am I, and I am and I. I'm not going to go through this whole procedure every time now in order to save some time, but I'll show you another couple of combinations for the left hand that I find very useful. So let's go through 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 4, and then reverse the whole thing. So far so good. Let's add one more complication by actually playing 4 different notes also with the left hand. So for now, 1, 2, 1, 2. I again am not going through the whole procedure of grouping everything into I, am I, and so on. But I advise you to really do it like that because it makes it a lot easier to sync your hands. I'm going to go through another couple groups that I suggest learning. And reversing. Same with 2, 3. And reversing. And 3, 4, 3, 4. And reversing. And of course, the most famous ones. And reverse. I'll play through all of them quickly now. I hope you enjoyed learning these techniques and you can actually apply them to your repertoire.